All right, so we are on our first day of engineering. This is our expansive learning for Lee Vining High School. All right, so we have already installed OpenSCAD. We set up Classcraft. We did a bunch of necessary things. So let's talk about OpenSCAD. Everyone saw this image. Gunnar got his editor fixed. Just as a note, if you ever lose any of these things, I'll show you how to reopen those. But this thing right here, it is called the editor. Write it down. Editor. I guess it's written right there too if you need it. But yeah, it's the editor. Then there's the console. I guess you can just kind of underline it. I didn't realize that they're labeled, but that is the editor. And this guy, I'm not sure exactly what it's called. I can look it up right now for us. So how do you get those things back? So it's called, if I go to the View tab, and I come down here to hide editor, and I check that, the editor is now gone. If I come view and I click on editor again, it comes back. So it's under view. So everyone should be able to make that. Another thing that can happen is you accidentally get your editor. You can actually drag around the editor and make it come to the top like this, and it's really annoying. So what you can do is you can drag the editor off here to the left-hand side, and it will obviously come to the left-hand side. Why do we have these things? This is where you write code. You will 95% be using the editor. You'll be looking at what happens over here. I don't actually know what this window is called, but it's I'm going to call it the preview window. It's where you're actually going to see the shapes that you're creating. And then, of course, your console. Why would you ever want to look at your console? This is looking for errors. And specifically, they're going to be in red. So errors in red. So, for example, I'll show you an error that I can throw right now. So if I type in, and it's kind of hard to see from the recording, but if I type in and, hold on, I do need to do one extra thing. I'm going to come here to Preferences. I'm going to come to Editor. I'm going to make this bigger so that everyone can see it. We'll make it 20. Hopefully that's big enough. Can people see when I type now? Or do you want it bigger? Does anyone need it to be bigger? Last call. Okay. So if I do cube and I do 1, 2, 3. If I render this, it will say error. Compilation failed on line 2. It says on line, by line 2 it had an error, which means between line 1 and 2 something happened. And the reason that I made an error is because I forgot my semicolon. Now there is no error. So notice when I have an error, it does stuff in red. Look for the stuff in red. It will give you hints at what happened and where it happened. So that's where your errors are. Okay, let's talk about other things. These buttons right here are the same buttons that are up here. What do they do? And you can probably figure them out really quick. This one is new. This one is open. This one is save. Just as an aside, why do we use this symbol for save so many times? Does anyone actually know this? Floppy disk. Okay, I'm just hoping that everyone does know that. Raise your hand if you know what a floppy disk is. That means 2 people do not know what a floppy disk is. So let me really quickly educate our youth. So back in the day when we didn't have SD cards, when we didn't have nice memory, we had these things called floppy disks. They stored 15 megabytes. The advanced ones were 15 megabytes. That means if you wanted to run a program, you would insert an SD card, pull it out, insert your second SD card, pull it out, insert your third SD card, or I call it SD card, sorry. It's your floppy disk. You have to insert multiple floppy disks in order to run hard programs. Kind of crazy. Yeah, Gunnar.
There's something inappropriate on that. I think you...
Hot pies.
No.
Oh, don't know why that came up. All right, so coming down here, this is the undo button, of course. Label it, redo. Running out of room here, this is going to be tab left. So untab, and this will be tab right. As you're writing those down, I will be showing you physically what those do. In OpenSCAD, it does not matter about spacing. In Python, spacing matters a lot. But in OpenSCAD, it doesn't matter if you have a tab or no tab. So if I come back, I don't want to show that again, but I need to come back here. If I want to come back here, and I want to tab this over, if I click on this, you can kind of, let me make my editor smaller so it's actually recording everything. If I can grab this window, make it smaller, there we go. All right, so I'm going to make this the exact size of the recording screen. So if I click on this tab over and over again, it keeps tabbing over to the right, this tab left and left and left, which is cool because if I have multiple lines and I grab all of those lines, I can tab them all over individually. There's also keyboard shortcuts for all of that, but I'll tell you those when we're more advanced. All right, so I believe it is, nope. I probably, is it for OpenSCAD? So Command A, Command bracket, no. I know that's for some coding languages, not for ours, I guess. Maybe it was Control bracket. Anyway, this guy, we're going to be using him the most. Circle him. We are using this the most. This stands for render. Sorry, preview. Sorry, not render. I apologize. Sorry. Preview. Preview. This will show you what's happening in, I'm going to call this the preview screen. Pre and then view. Do you know how to spell view? Then you can spell preview.
R-E-I-W.
Preview. Okay. You will be using preview over and over again. So, for example, if I typed in cube, and I did 1, 2, 3, I have to actually click on this preview button for it to show. If I didn't do that, for example, like this, nothing shows. Nothing still shows even though I have the code here until I hit the preview button. What's the difference between these two? This one actually renders it. There's a difference between preview and render. This one is called render. Rendering it means I actually have the object. There is a big difference between these two, and I will show you what those look like. So, for example, if I look at, let's do square, and I'm going to do the coordinates, let's do 4 by 5. With a square, if I zoom in here, you can actually, we'll practice using what's over here, but just zooming in and zooming out using 2 fingers. And if I click and drag, then I can rotate around here. If I ever need to come back, I'll teach you what those buttons are in a sec. But you can see right now that looks like a square, right? There's a difference between a preview and a render. The render says, hey, that's 2-dimensional. The preview will show you the actual square. So this is more accurate if I render it, and you'll actually see problems because you can't combine 2D and 3D shapes. You can combine 2D and 2D and 3D and 3D, but not 2D with 3D, which is a big problem when we deal with text, because text is 2-dimensional. We have to have some command to make it 3-dimensional text. All right, and then finally, this is the final button that you will be using whenever you're done with a project, export as STL. And I'm curious, because I don't actually know this, what does STL stand for? STL is the file type that you're going to be using whenever you have a 3D... Oh, hello. Do you want to... All right, our superintendent has now gone. So .stl, write it down on the side, .stl. This is the file type whenever I have a 3D model. So it's the file type for 3D models. And I'm curious, what does STL stand for? What does STL stand for?
Let me guess. Steel. Standing.
Oh, standard test. Okay, you don't need to know that, but now I know it. I never knew that before. Standard tessellation language. Because, yeah, it's just made off of polygons. Cool. So cool. Let's go down here to these. All right, this is where we could finally start leveling up. Wow. Oh boy. Who's got the first one? What's the first one? Julian. Preview. All right, and this is where Atziri has the hard job because Atziri not only has to write down those notes, but now Atziri is in charge of saying, Julian just got 50 XP for participating.
Render. Gunner! Why are you raising?
Is there... Okay, that's too bad. We'll have to enforce these procedures yet again, but I'm going to new preset. We'll just do 5, not a quiet raised hand. And I will give him, James, you want to protect, get some XP? Oh my god, you get 100 XP for blocking? Whoo! Yeah, James just leveled up.
Wow.
It's that easy in this class. Okay. OP. Is there a quiet raised hand now for what this button is right here? Oh yeah, Monse. Render. Write it down in your notes. We'll get used to this. Monse. Oh yeah, so at Ziri's giving the XP. I know at Ziri it's hard because you have to do a ton of things. So Monse just got 50 XP at Ziri. All right. These buttons we haven't learned, but we don't use these very often. In fact, I don't even know them off the top of my head unless I hover over them. View all. Oh, that's a cool button. So I should be using that button way more often. All right, everyone label it. View all. Which is a great button because if I have things that are, for example, I'll do another square, translate, we'll translate like 100 away or 1,000 away, 0, 0. If I have a translation of the same square, copy and paste that, and I render that, and I'm like, wait, where did it go? If I click View All, if I click that button, I can actually see both of those there. If I were to get rid of these two lines and not have two squares, and I render it again, and I click View All, it zooms into that one square. So if I can't find certain objects, View All. I did not know that, and I'm glad I'm doing those notes now. Okay, obviously zoom in and zoom out. Zoom in, zoom out. This one is a harder one. Colby?
Camera reset.
Camera reset. All right, so Colby just got 50 XP. You got him, at Ziri? Doing a good job. At Ziri, did you give yourself 100 XP also since you're the game warden?
It's 120.
You should give yourself 100, or you're right. Can you please give yourself, at Ziri, 120 XP for being the game warden? There are no teacher errors anymore.
Oh wait, 10 push-ups, I'd like to use my power.
Do you have that power?
Yeah.
All right, these guys are kind of, I don't use them very often, but I think it's view right. Yeah, it goes right, then top, bottom, left. Right, bottom, top, yeah, right, top, bottom, left. What is this guy? I've never used him before. Okay, front and back. This guy is front and back. And you might be asking or thinking to yourself, this is pretty silly to write this in your notes because you can just hover over it and it'll tell you. Yeah, Colby. Okay. But yeah, now writing it down makes me learn it and makes us all learn it. So we totally could. So I think this is the orthogonal view. I'm not exactly sure why that button is there. Orthogonal versus perspective. I just leave them. You can always unshow your axes, show markers. So if I showed the scale markers, for example, I can see that this is 10 millimeters. That's something that, let's add to the notes. I forgot to put that here. But this distance right here, add it to your preview window. This distance right here is 10 millimeters. It counts by tens. In fact, that actually might be 1 if I zoomed in too much. That actually might be 1 millimeter, depending on where we are viewed. But everything is in millimeters, not inches, not centimeters. Yeah, it has to be millimeters. Okay, everyone show me with your fingers right now, and I'll give you 50 XP if you're correct. How big is a millimeter? Oh. All right, let's see if you get XP. At Ziri, at the ready.
Pretty big.
Nope for Julian. Yes for Colby. Yes for James. Yes for Gunner. No for Colby.
What did you do?
Yes for Monse.
That's like
It's 50 for each.
big.
I will show you exactly how big a millimeter is. This is called a caliper. It will measure things very, very precisely.
Boy.
Oh, it's blinking because I have low batteries. I will show you. That is 1 millimeter. That is exactly 1 millimeter. So 0.99 because I can't get it to exactly 1. That is 1 millimeter. It's very, very, very small. That is 1 millimeter. That is 1 millimeter. Very, very small.
Wait, so who got XP?
Everyone but Cohen
And Julian. And at Ziri, sorry, we were working so hard. That's why you get the XP for being the, what are we calling them? Game Masters. All right. So,
Game Warden.
Game warden. I'm the game master. You're the game warden.
Sure.
Game master is control of everything. All right, let's actually start learning some code. Backside. Flip over the paper. So, objects versus transformations. And we kind of skipped over a line, so I'll leave this up on the board. Keep it on the backside. Everyone go to this address. Open up your laptop. Laptop open, OpenSCAD.org/cheat sheet, bookmark it. You will use this. This is our holy Bible for this class. OpenSCAD.org/cheat sheet. This is our holy Bible of OpenSCAD. It has everything you will ever need.
Oh, it's a cheat sheet.
It's a cheat sheet. And Atziri, can you back me up here? Did we use this a lot in robotics last year? You sounded kind of hesitant, but we definitely use it a lot, right? Okay, we did. Okay, so let me open it up here as well. So I need to make my window slightly smaller so that it fits in here. Make this right here. All right, so if I go to OpenSCAD.org/cheat sheet, so you will see every possible command. Mr. Sindel does not know all of these, although I am going to be learning more of them with you. I know most of them. So what we're going to be dealing with right now, we're talking about the difference between objects and transformation. These, 2D and 3D, are objects. These are transformations. Many people mistake the difference between them two, but if you are moving it, if you're stretching it, if you're doing something to an object, if you're doing an adjective to an object, then it's not going to have a semicolon. If you have an object, you are going to have a semicolon. Objects have semicolons. Transformations do not. Nod your heads that you understand. All right. Also raise your hand if you need more time to bookmark this. Bookmark this now. You will be using it every day. Bookmark it now. And if you don't bookmark it, I'm pretty sure if you just go to a new tab and start typing in cheat sheet, it should be the first thing that pops up, because I doubt you have any other cheat sheets.
I sent you the STL.
That's what that is? All right, thank you. I'm sure Atziri got that notification on the tablet too. There are items, but no weapons, I believe.
Crystals. It's now called crystals.
All right, so coming back to the notes. Everyone shut your laptop. You don't need them anymore. You have the cheat sheet in front of you. You now know where to find objects. James Gunner. You now know where to find objects. You now need or see the transformations. Okay. Is there someone that can answer what to fill in here? Lines of code with objects always end with a... who needs the XP?
I do. I do. I think I do.
Oh wow, we're all pretty even. So raise your hand again. James. There it is. Semicolon.
Do we still get XP for helping?
Only when they need help. James, did you feel like you needed help there? And who helped you? All right. So Atziri, give Gunner 80 XP. Thank you, Atziri. You're the best. And then James just got 50 XP. You got that too, Atziri? Did you give James 50 for getting it? Perfect. All right, next quiet raised hand. Transformations should never have a what? Quiet raised hand. Oh, look, Gunner has a quiet raised hand. Yes, Gunner. There it is. So Gunner, you get 50 XP. Thank you, Atziri. Everyone write it down in your notes. Transformations should never have a semicolon. If you accidentally put a semicolon on a transformation, it won't work. It'll be like, Mr. Sindel, why isn't it translating? Oh, you have a semicolon. And I'll delete that and it'll be fixed. So far, so good? All right, let's learn our first basic function, cube. Cube is...
Cube.
It's a cube. It's an object.
Cube is cube.
But a cube is misleading because this thing, which is technically a rectangular prism, it can be nice and thin. It's not a cube. Maybe this could be like 10, this could be 2, and this could be 13. This is still a cube because you don't want to type out rectangular prism. And if you want to make your own function that does rectangular prism, you can just recase the cube. But generally, cubes can be any size. So x, y, and z. What do I mean by x, y, and z? The x, y, and z axes. So if I come back over here, you can see over here in the bottom left corner, when I click and drag, oh boy. All right, so when we left off before we went to breakfast, we were talking about cubes. And again, a cube is a fancy way of saying rectangular prism. It does have different dimensions. The last thing that I was talking about was how when I start rotating this thing, if I click and drag, you'll notice in the bottom left-hand corner of the preview screen that the X, Y, and Z axis always move with you, which means if I look at Y down here, Y is going this way, which means this is my Y axis. My x-axis goes this direction, so this is my x-axis and that is my z-axis. James, point to the z-axis. Come up to the board, James. Point to the z-axis. All right, so James was not paying attention, so that's being off task. You lost 10 HP.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, yes, that is the z-axis. Explain why that is the z-axis and you will not lose 10 HP.
It's the height, or like
Well, I mean, you don't know its height. What if I change it to this one? Now this one is the height.
because this is X, Y, and Z.
How do you know that, though? Which one is the z now? Nope, that's the x.
You know what? I don't care.
Okay, that is okay, but next time, please be paying attention.
Wow. Wow.
I saw you fiddling with your stuff. That's why I wanted to call on you, because you weren't paying attention. All right, so in this orientation, the z-axis is a little bit hard to see, but yes, the z-axis does change whenever I move this around. So if I reorientate by resetting the camera and I zoom back in, you can see that the z-axis now should be, it's a little bit hard to see here, but the z-axis, let's try to make it harder, like the one that I gave James. There we go. The z-axis is kind of hard to see now. This is now the z-axis. It matches with right here. This y-axis goes straight up this direction, which means this straight up direction is the y-axis. The x direction runs this way, just judging off of this little icon down here. Therefore, this is my x-axis. The reason that I know what my axes are is because I can look down here. All right, so if I want to do a cube, and I'll give you a quick example. I'm going to reset the camera, zoom in here. If I change this square to cube, and I do 4, 5, let's do 4, 10, 1. I want someone to predict what this shape is going to look like. It's not going to be a cube, but it's funny. It's not going to be a cube. Is there anyone that can predict what that is going to look like based off of your notes back over here?
An actual legit triangle.
Okay, so it's not a triangle.
Very flat rectangle.
Flat in which direction?
A yellow rectangle.
Flat in the height direction?
Yeah.
Yeah, it is going to be a very flat rectangle. If I render it, it's still very flat because the z direction is 1. If I change this number to 10, so Terry, if you can give Colby 50 XP, what is going to change now? I changed this from, what was it, a 4 before to a 10. Oops, 10. What is going to be the change now? How is this going to change? What is it going to look like? Colby knows. Another quiet raised hand. What is this going to look like if I change that 3 to a 10?
That was 4.
Or it was 4 to a 10? Okay, so it was 4 back here. Render it. I'm going to change it to a 10. Before I preview, what is it going to look like? Gunnar.
Cube.
You can't just keep saying cube over and over because that's not the answer.
More of a square.
More of a square, yes. When I render it, it is exactly a square with a height of 1. Yeah, so Gunnar, 50 XP. Thank you, Edzuri. Thank you, Gunnar. So in summary, what's happening here is every time that I change this first number, it changes the direction in the x coordinate. And you can see, I'll even get up here on the screen. This x coordinate means if I change this first number, it will stretch out the cube or make the cube change in this direction. If I change this second number, that's the y variable. Y variable is affecting this length because that matches up with the y down here. If I change the z variable to 10, it'll turn it into a cube. If I change this one to a 10, it will change the height to a 10. Let's see what that looks like. I'm going to change this 1 now to a 10, I'm going to render it. There's always shortcuts that you can do too, like if you hover over it, I believe F5, which is on our computers. If you don't have it switched in your settings, you have to Fn F5 to render it. But yeah, you can change the cube to 10. There is a shortcut to doing exact cubes. For example, if I didn't have square brackets and I just did 10, that would give me the same cube. If I change this to 5, it will be an exact cube of just 5. But if I want it a rectangular prism, I need to have individual sizes inside these square brackets. Ask me questions now, because this is going to get harder faster and faster. If we don't understand the basics, it's going to be really hard to understand the advanced. All right, so what's actually happening here, if I go to the cheat sheet, they'll say, oh, this is actually how a cube works. There's a variable that is accepted for the first spot. This first spot is a variable that contains this vector. So this variable contains this vector, and it's going to say size. So the first thing that's passed through is size. The next thing that's passed through is center. But it doesn't matter the order that you do it in. I could do cube center and then size, as long as I say center equals something. Size equals something. If I actually call out what I'm putting in, then it doesn't matter the order in which you pass in these parameters. I'm using a lot of new terminology, and I'm hoping that I'm not confusing you. I will re-explain this. But if I want to do comma true here, so let me do an example because I don't have one right here. If I want to do cube, and then I'm going to enter in some numbers, let's do 2, 10, 20, it's going to look like this. If I want it to be centered, I'm going to go outside of the square brackets and do comma true. This works because the second thing that I'm passing through, the second parameter, let's go ahead and label that because it's a nice word. Each of these are called parameters. Parameter. This is one parameter, size. The other parameter is center. Parameter. There are two parameters passed into this function, this object function called cube. So because I did them in order, and it doesn't matter if I have a space here, I could put a space, oops, I could put a space and that would be fine and it'd still render. If I did them in order, that's fine. But if I did them out of order, that's not okay. For example, if I come here and I do true, comma, that, it's not going to work. Oh, it breaks it because it should now be a cube of size 2, 10, and 20, and it's not. It's a cube of size 1, which is interesting because true actually takes on a value of 1. But it doesn't work. It doesn't work because they're out of order. But if I do want to enter them that way, I can say, oh, center is equal to true, and size is equal to that. Now it will work because I've identified what the parameter is. So if you identify the parameter by actually saying size equals this, you don't have to enter it in order. All right. That's really hard and kind of complex. Give me a fist of fire. How well do you think you just understood that?
What? I don't know.
Okay, well, so you guys got it. Okay, I'm not going to kick a dead horse then. So let's go to an example. I want to see right now, grab your pencils, and you will get 50 XP if you can do this correct.
Pencil.
I want you to write down with your pencil code that will make this shape. And I'll tell you the dimensions. These are not in the correct order. But there's a dimension of 2 somewhere, there's a dimension of 10 somewhere, and there's a dimension of 20 somewhere. Write out one line of code that makes this shape.
Which one do we know what the axes are?
So this is center. So when you center your camera, for example, if I come back here and I hit reset, by reset, the X direction is always that one. So if you want to label, you can come down here. You can say, I'll just write it down here. You can say X, Y, Z.
I did it.
All right, let's see if you guys got it correct. All right, so that was one of many commands, and I don't think by any means that people are still an expert, but I'm going to see if I can make you an expert in the next few minutes. All right, laptop should still be shut.
I was checking my...
Still shut until after the lesson. Okay, so what about this center equals true versus false thing? By default, and I need you to write this down, default. By default, center is equal to true, which means If I don't type center equals true, or sorry, oh my gosh, center is equal to false. What am I saying? By default, center is equal to false, which means actually Cohen's code had a little bit of error in it, but that's okay. By default, this is set to false. So what that means is if I come over here and I do this and I say, I'm going to do my vector, what was the actual answer here? It's going to be 10 to 20. 10 to 20. And it doesn't matter about spacing. Spacing does make it look nice. So if I run this, I get that shape. And you can actually check it. It looks like that shape. But if I do center, and I don't even need to do center, I could just type in false because that's the next order. So false, it's the same thing because by default, this second parameter is set to false. The only way that I can change this is setting this to true. By setting it to true, now it is perfectly centered. Okay, so far so good? That was our first of many functions. All right, so what I want you to do is play for 2 minutes on your computers. See if you can, with code, and do different sizes of cubes. Make sure you got your parameters right. Make sure you know how to type this. Make sure you know if there's a semicolon. If you have 2 to 3 minutes to play around with this, make sure you know how to make cubes. All right, we are again going on our own notes. We have our line drawn. So the next thing that I want to talk about is a transformation called translate.
Yeah, I did the freaking translate wrong.
Hablas español? It actually does that. No, it does not translate into a different language. Translate, it has a geometric definition. What is another word for translate?
It's that translation thing we did in geometry.
It is a translation thing that we did in geometry. Is there a quiet raised hand for a synonym? Another word for translate? Yes, Cohen. Move, yeah. So at 0, Cohen gets 50 XP. Move.
That was me.
Oh, are you claiming that you should get XP?
Oh, no, I'm not.
Oh,
Yes,
okay.
he is. I'm not.
I don't know. You better be careful there.
Did or didn't happen.
Okay. So translate really means move. And again, you can always come to your cheat sheet. That's what I'm going to be basing all of this off of. If I come to the cheat sheet, translate is right here under transformations. And I need to move this window right here. Let me make this slightly smaller because I just resized the window. Are you okay, Gunnar? So translate, and it's really easy to see what translate does just from this one line. If I even zoom in here so you can see it at the very back, translate, I need parentheses and I need square brackets. So in your notes, this is how you write it. And does anyone have different colors for their notes, or is everyone just doing pencil? Okay. Translate. Translate, you're going to need parentheses. And then you're also going to need square brackets. I always call them square brackets, but really they should just be called brackets. You have brackets, parentheses, that's all you really use.
In some code, there's curly brackets.
I believe they're called, I know that I've been calling them curly brackets, but I think there's actually a name for them.
I'm pretty sure everyone just calls them curly brackets.
Okay, I'll do square brackets and curly brackets. So translate. And then again, it's X, comma,
Not
Y,
like
comma, Z. And maybe I'll be fancy and I'll call it Z. Because people do. Z. So the way that translate works is you want to do it before the object. So if I want to, so let's do some pseudocode. So, quiet raise hand. What does pseudocode mean?
It's not actual code, but it looks
Is there a quiet raised hand out there for what does pseudocode mean? Sorry, Colby. Gotta get used to it. Pseudocode.
Use the manage shield thing.
No.
Why?
Because I want XP.
What?
Oh man, Mr. Sindel can use Protect One.
Hey, I want to use it.
Woo!
No!
Oh, all right. So that's how it works.
This is abusing his
No,
power.
it's
Mr. Sindel's abusing his power as game
I
master.
could have used that. I could have definitely gotten some. 10.
Okay. Oh man, James is gonna use Protect One. Okay, good job, James. All right. So translate. The way that this works is you have to do it before. So, again,
What happens? Wait, I have a question.
about Classcraft?
Is there a raised hand for a question? Oh yes, there's a raised hand. That's quiet.
What happens if you protect for someone when it's a death?
Ooh, yeah. What?
Like 3,000.
So like you protect someone and you die by protecting?
Yeah.
It doesn't let you.
Well.
It doesn't let you protect if it's gonna die. If you're gonna die. But if they're about to die and you can always protect from that, makes sense, right?
Well, no. If it's like they're taking 2,000 damage, you know.
But that just
You can,
defeats the
so
purpose.
blocking, you only block a percentage.
Oh, you could do a reverse card.
Yeah, 8.
You could reverse card that.
8.
So, if you are planning on thinking, oh, I'm going to touch the Game Warden's iPad and then use Uno reverse card to kill Mr. Sindel, you're going to have another thing coming. That has a special rule where it can't be Uno reverse carded.
Carded.
The video didn't happen.
It's recorded, so it's there.
Oh, no, it is.
So, I forget, what was the question that I was asking that Colby kind of knew the answer to?
Syntax.
What?
Okay.
I don't know.
Pseudocode.
Pseudo, yeah.
Pseudocode, that's right, thank you. Cohen, 50XP, thank you, Edzuri.
Hey,
All right, so pseudocode, what does, and we'll write this on the side margins, pseudo. This is helping you for English. You didn't think you'd be doing English in here, but you are. Pseudo, pseudo, and then hyphen, pseudo anything, pseudo science, pseudo math, pseudo code. Pseudo means
Pseudo.
fake. So, pseudoscience, fake science. So you're like, if you want to really make someone mad because you think that they're doing fake science, or maybe they actually are doing fake science, you can say that's pseudoscience. You're not doing real science.
So the Earth is flat.
What they know
Earth is flatter. Yeah, Earth. I mean, there's some pretty cool videos online of them like doing tests, and then they're like, all right, and then if this number equals this number, then the Earth is flat, and they're like, cut the video. Anyway, so pseudo means fake. We're about to do pseudocode. So right here, write down Pseudo, pseudo code. I'm going to do a hyphen even though I don't necessarily need it. Pseudocode. We're doing some fake code. This is how you use the translate. You say first. I'll do this in a different color. You say move. And then underneath that, you say object. So I'm going to do move cube. That is the pseudocode. You always do move and then the thing that you're moving. So here's the real code. So I'm going to call this just code. So the real way to do this is you say translate. And let's move this only up. I want to move up by 7 millimeters. Is there someone that can do the code, tell me what to write? I want to move some cube up by 7 millimeters. Who can do that? Julian. Gunner.
Oh, no. Okay. So, well, actually, I don't know because I don't really know anything.
You want to take yes?
Maybe 7?
Nope. Okay.
No.
Cohen, go for it, Cohen.
Just the
Tell me exactly what to write. If I need a parenthesis, tell me to write a parenthesis.
parenthesis, curly bracket,
Square bracket, right? Are we moving in the X direction?
0, 0, 7, box bracket,
Square bracket,
parenthesis,
parenthesis.
Legal.
Curly bracket.
and
That's parentheses.
wait, no.
Right?
Do I need a semicolon?
I need. No.
I think you need it.
Yes. Yes, you
Do I need a semicolon? That's the question for Cohen. To get the full points. Give him 50 XP, that's right, he got it. You do not need a semicolon. Write in your notes, no semicolon. And if you just want to write the semicolon, there's no semicolon because in our notes back all the way over here, I said that if you are doing a transformation means up, down, left, right, it should never, never, never have a semicolon. So Cohen was right, there is no semicolon. Okay, so I did the translate. I'm going to do the rest of the code. Thank you, Cohen. And I'm going to just do a random cube. So I'm going to do a cube. And let's do just 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, square bracket, parenthesis, and I will purposely leave an error. There is an error that I want someone to catch. I'm going to wait for everyone to write it down first, and then I'll call on someone. So keep writing it down. Once everyone has finished writing, then I will call on someone. If you shout it out, you will lose 10 HP. What is the error? There's some error in this code. If I type that in, it will say, you have done something bad, Mr. Sindel. It's organized by level. Click. Why is it not? Well, Julian needs it the most, so Julian. There it is. No semicolon. Write it down. You need a semicolon for that last line. All right, Zuri, can you please give Julian his 50 XP? All right. So that's how you do a translate. What I want you to do now is stop writing, open up your laptops, and I need you to show me proof that you can translate 3 cubes. All right, so we are learning our final thing today. Our final thing is going to be, actually there's 2 really quick things. I'm going to teach you a rotate, and I'm going to teach you a sphere. Rotate and sphere. So let's do the sphere first and then a rotate. So sphere. Write it down. S-P-H-E-R-E. If you don't know how to draw a sphere, luckily Mr. Sindel is here. No? It rhymed? Okay.
That's a hit. That's a
Go ahead and draw a circle.
Give him 20 kitty XP.
He just spit fire. He needs XP.
That's right. Draw a circle. Draw a smiley face through that circle and then do a dotted smiley face upside down on the back and you have a sphere. Doesn't that look like a sphere now? Julian's like, not even close, Mr. Sindel. Like, you got
like
nothing on
when
me.
You're doing the freaking rotations and blunders.
Yeah.
Well, in our Christian engineers,
So, the way that a sphere works, and I'm just reading off of the cheat sheet, sphere is kind of cool because notice that there are no square brackets. It goes sphere, radius, and then that's it. So, the way that the code works is it looks like this. Write it down. S-P-H-E-R-E. Sphere, radius. And then there's this symbol. I'll explain this symbol in a sec, or you can do D equals diameter. And I'll show you a few examples of what that looks like. You do need a semicolon. The one thing that this cheat sheet does not do is it does not tell you that you need a semicolon. They know that you know that this is an object and therefore it needs a semicolon at the very end. So, what does this thing right here mean? Quiet raised hand if you know it. Quiet raised hand. I know that you're thinking with the word but you need to be slightly quieter. What does that mean when it comes to code? Colby.
separator.
Good guess, but no. Gunnar, go for it.
Or.
It is or.
Really?
It is, yeah.
I said separate or.
No. Okay, so that's Zuri. Gunnar just got 50 XP. If that means or. So you have 2 things that you can put in. Here are some examples. So we'll label these. These are examples.
Examples are my favorite.
Okay, I'm glad they are. So examples. Sphere. 2. I just now realized that I haven't taught you how to do a comment, which is like the most important thing that you can do in code. If you don't comment your code, no one will know what the heck you're doing. So I'm going to do a comment right now. This is a comment. Ready? Boom, boom. That's a comment. Double slash, double forward slash is a comment. So, sphere with radius of 2. I did a comment after that, so I am explaining what the code just did. If you want to do a comment in your code, you can do them anywhere you want. And I'm wondering, does this actually talk about how to do comments? I'm pretty sure it does not. Nowhere in here do I see it explain about comments. Okay. There's also other ways to do comments. I'll talk about that as we need them. We don't really need them for today. All right, here's another example. S-P-H-E-R-E D is equal to 7. All right. Someone give me a quiet raised hand. Tell me what to put for a comment here. What did I just do? So make sure that you write that down. Sphere D equals 7. What is happening? I'm going to give it to someone who has low XP. Mr. Sindel. Okay. Julian.
Let's go. Diameter.
Yep.
We're gonna sphere with diameter of 7.
Sphere with diameter
There should be.
of 7. Yeah, thank you, Julian. So I know that you're writing lots of things at 0 and it's hard to be in that Game Master. Maybe we should increase Game Master to like 240 XP or something bigger. But yeah, it's a sphere with a diameter of 7. And that's the only 2 examples that you really need to see. It's that easy. All right, finally, the last thing that I want to talk about is rotate. Rotate.
Rotate.
Rotate. All right. Kind of an easy XP here. So rotate and sphere. Which one is an object? Which one is a transformation? And you need to tell me each of what they are. Sphere is a rotate is a blank. Only 2 people have their hand raised. Give it to the lowest XP. Looks like I'm going with Gunner.
Okay. Sphere is an object. Rotate is a transformation.
Yep, write it down. This is an object. This is a transformation. How do you do a rotate? Well, I come back to the Holy Bible of OpenSCAD, the cheat sheet, and it says, oh, if you do a rotate, it's the exact same thing as translate, but the hard part is understanding what it actually does. So I'm going to write this exact same thing, rotate XYZ in the square brackets. So we'll write down the code. This is going to be rotate, then parenthesis, square bracket, X, comma, Y, comma, Z, square bracket, parenthesis. Do I need a semicolon here? Everyone's going to shout this out at the same time, yeah?
We all get XP?
You will all get XP if everyone shouts this out. So you're going to say yes or no at the same time. Hey, don't do that.
I was going like this.
Okay, so you're all going to shout out yes or no. Do you need a semicolon? Don't shout out yet. You're thinking about it for 5 seconds. Do you need a... Julian, don't do head nods. Do you need a semicolon? 3, 2, 1.
No.
Good job. Okay, I'll do that one because it's too hard for Atziri to give everyone a ton of XP. I'm just going to blanket everyone. There's 20. Oh, I didn't say it. Maybe I shouldn't give it to you. Okay. So, the hard thing is understanding what happens here. So let's do some more examples. Examples. Here's example 1 and example 2. That's the last thing for our notes. So examples. And okay, so this is something that I kind of forgot to say also. If you have a transformation like translate or rotate, those always happen before the object. So all transformations happen before the object. That's kind of important. I feel like we should write it down. Does everyone still have the notes from back over here?
No.
Yes.
Lost them.
If you don't have them, find them. Can we please go back and add to this? Can we please say happens before objects? I can't spell before. So transformations always happen before objects. So you'll do the transformation of the object. The adjective comes before the noun. So it's like English, not like Spanish. So far, so good? Okay, so coming back here, here's an example. So in this example, I'm going to say rotate. In parentheses, I'm going to do square bracket 180, comma 0, comma 0, square bracket, parentheses, no semicolon, and then I'm going to do a comment for what just actually happened. So I will give you the answer here. You know what happened? Okay, go for it, Colby.
Rotate 180 degrees in the X direction.
You're really close. That last part is where we get hung up.
On the X axis.
That's the key.
Same thing, bro.
It's It's different because x direction is this way, but x axis is rotating with that as your axis. So rotate 180 degrees on x axis.
Do you have to write a comment or no?
What do you mean?
Like when you're like doing the coding, do you have to write the comment?
No, you do not. But the more you like for each of these lines, I'm just trying to explain what they are, and I'm in this like a code type way of taking notes. And then let's do another one. Rotate. Square bracket. 0, 90. You could do multiple things. Usually you only do one at a time. But let's do 0, square bracket, parenthesis, and then instead of doing an immediate comment, I'm going to put an object. You can put an object on the same line as long as your transformation happened before the object. That's important and lazy and sloppy, but I'll repeat it anyway. You can put the transformation, rotate, in front of the object, sphere. I can do well, it doesn't really make sense to rotate a sphere. Let's rotate a cube, which still doesn't make very much sense because it's still 90 degrees. We'll just rotate a square. I know that we haven't learned square, but it's a square of any size, so it's really a rectangle. Square. Rotate square. Square bracket. Let's do a square 2 by 3. And I do need a semicolon there. I'm not going to do a comment. Oh, I ran out of room, but you should all do the comment.
I also ran out of
Write the comment now. I'm going to come around and check it off. Make sure you got it. What is that actually doing? It's doing something to that square. Write down the comment on your own notes, and that is the end of our notes for 3D programming for today. All right, sorry, one last minute thing is this. Money sign. FN is equal to. This is going to be code. What I would do here is I would say the title of this is segments. The more segments that you have, the more it looks like a sphere. The less segments that you have, the more it looks like Colby's weird shape. So FN, and you can even see this in the cheat sheet. This is in the cheat sheet. If I come over here to the cheat sheet, you see down here I have money sign FN, number of fragments. I guess I should say fragments if I was being professional about it. But money sign FN. It's the number of fragments, or segments, all right, fragments underneath, or fragments. If you set this to a high number, like 100, that will have more accurate shapes for circles. If I do money sign FN is equal to 10, that will not be very accurate. Money sign FN is equal to 1,000, you might just have a broken program. And I know you'll love to do that, and it's fine to do it for now. So this one will take forever.
360 is fine, and that's an actual sphere.
So you're just doing one sphere, though. Once you have about 200 spheres, because we'll be doing really complex things, each of those has 1,000 segments. Yikes, right?
Well, I'm using 260.
Really fast. Average. I think by default, FN is set to like 10 or something like.
I can check. Not 10.
Is it 50? I don't know what it's actually default, but really fast.
It's, hold up.
And I can show you an example for those of you that are looking. If I come back over here and I say sphere, and I do, it doesn't matter where you put the FN, so money sign FN is equal to 10, well,
Right,
yeah,
it's like
10,
it's 5.
sphere of 100, and we'll zoom to size. All right, so FN is equal to 10. What happens if I make that 100 and I go ahead and preview it? It looks better. If I add another 1,000, it takes a lot longer, but it's almost a perfect sphere. 3,000, it's going to take forever.
2,000?
It's going, it's going, it's going, it's going, it's still compiling, it's still compiling, it's still compiling. Oh God, it's going to break my computer. This is why you don't do 3,000. And it didn't fit into the cache. Okay, I can't go up to 3,000. It didn't like that. It took 13 seconds to tell me I couldn't do it. But yeah, so higher numbers make it more accurate. If I do lower numbers like 10, it does not look like a sphere anymore. So that's the last thing for our notes.
Yeah, it's like 5.